And there was this one dive that it was in a way the dive that changed everything, perhaps. Maybe life would have changed anyway later on, but it just happened to be this one dive.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. In 2018, during my first trip through Indonesia, some last-minute changes and plans landed me in what would become one of my favorite places on Earth, Bunaken Island in North Sulawesi. This is where I met Rosa. At the time, she was a Divemaster in training and was my dive guide for the week. I stayed in touch with Rosa and followed her travels around the world and her journey as she moved through the ranks and is now a staff instructor. On this episode, I am excited to share her story. Enjoy. Rosa, how are you doing this evening? Or is it the afternoon over there? What time is it over there?
It's actually noon over here in the Canary Islands.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just a little past 7 for me. So definitely a little bit of a time difference. But it's great to see you. It has been a very, very long time. I think the last time I saw you, I wasn't even a dive pro at that point in time. I was just still kind of traveling around, backpacking around Indonesia, so it's been a little bit since I've seen you.
Yeah, you were, well, I was your dive master, actually.
Yes,
you were my
yes.
diver. And I have to tell you, I've told this story to a few people over the years, because I don't know if you remember, but the first dive that we did in Bunaken, so that's where we met, right, in Bunaken, you were like, your body language was kind of funny underwater. No, but good. It was good. No, you were in a good place, but it was kind of funny. And I was like, what is happening to this guy? And then we came up and you were like, oh my God, Rosa, I'm used to diving in lakes in Texas. And I couldn't believe how much I could see, You were amazed by the visibility that we had in Bunaken, which is really good, actually.
Oh,
yeah. Coming from Texas, I guess the brain wasn't ready, for 20 plus meter visibility, amazing corals. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's still to this day, I tell people it's one of my favorite places. So much so that trip had so much of an impact on me that I actually went there a year later to complete my dive master course. So
Yes.
it's still one of my favorite places. Unfortunately I have not been there since I moved out to this part of the world, but it's definitely on the list just because it's just it's a magical place. So I'm sure as well as anybody. So
I agree. I went back a number of times, and I guess we'll get to that later on, probably.
okay.
But I actually have the outline of Bunaken Island tattooed on my foot, so
Ah!
that's how much of an impact Bunaken made on me.
That's awesome. That is amazing. So I usually start with, tell me about how you got into diving, why you got into diving, and tell me about that first experience, that first breath underwater.
Okay, so let's go back a few years. Well, in case people don't know yet, I guess they don't. I'm Spanish. I was born in Madrid. And you cannot be further away from the sea. You have to be from Madrid, from the furthermost point to the sea in the whole country. But I spent summers in the sea, with my family. We would go and, have the typical Spanish holiday by the sea every year. But I never tried diving while I was in Spain. A few years later, I was working in Switzerland, different life completely. And at some point, I decided to quit my job. Okay, so disclaimer: I'm another one of those dive pros that came from the corporate world. I think quite a lot of us have a similar story. So I quit my job and I took all my Swiss money with me, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna go on a nice trip around the world and see what there is to see on land and hopefully also underwater. So the first destination, and again, well, this is now the second time we talk about Indonesia. I went to Indonesia. I was traveling across Java, and then I met some people there. I started the trip on my own, and then, as you always do, you meet people, right? So I was traveling with my travel buddies. We crossed over to Bali, and a couple of them wanted to do their open water course. And it was on my bucket list, actually, for that trip. And knowing that I was in Indonesia, that it was a really good place for diving, I thought, okay, I will do it here. And since I have people who are going to do it now, I'll do it with them. So we were in Lovina. The diving in Lovina is, well, nothing to write home about, really. I remember a lot of sand from open water dive number 1 and 2. But it was a nice experience. I think we had a pretty decent instructor. I think he was quite good. We did our last open water dive at the USS Liberty Wreck, which I know you know quite well. Yeah. So that was quite cool, to wrap up your open water course in such a nice dive site, which I ended up visiting many times later on. And I'll tell you why later, because I ended up going back to that part of the world for work. But anyway, that's a few years later.
How did you pick the destination Java? Was it just like a random spot on the map? Like what brought you there? Like what was the urge to go there?
Well, I was kind of budgeting 3-4 months in Indonesia. So I wanted to do a bit of a tour around. And I didn't want to start in Bali. I had been to Bali actually on holiday before. And I just wanted to go to other places in Indonesia because I understand that, okay, Bali is what it is. And, me coming from Spain, we have a lot of highlight destinations for tourists. So if I could compare Bali to a destination in Spain, I would say maybe Mallorca, something like that, which is like an obvious choice that people go to. But I wanted to see other islands and I know that Indonesia, and I knew then, has a lot of different cultures and religions and languages. So yeah, I wanted to start in a kind of logical order. So I thought, okay, I'll go to Java and start heading east from here. So that's why.
That's awesome. No, that's absolutely amazing. And then when you took that first open water course, did you just naturally fall into it? I know some people will have some trouble, or was it just love at first breath?
Well, to be honest with you, it was it felt like it was something that I had done before. So it was kind of natural to me. It was easy, I would say. But I didn't fall in love with it, which is funny because later on I did. But that it was not a crush, it was not like, oh my God, I just fell in love. No, it was like, okay, this is good. This is good. It's nice. I can keep doing it. But yeah, I guess, okay, it's true that to Lamben, the Liberty Wreck was really impressive. Although I touched some fire coral. Ooh. So that was maybe not a really good experience to have on your 4th dive, Yeah, so I remember that very well. And I remember for a few weeks because, oh my God, it's incredible. Really, how long these wounds last? What are they made of? It's really incredible. But I don't think that had anything to do with my falling in love or not falling in love with diving. It was just, something that happened. Yeah, it was actually, okay, so as part of that big trip in Indonesia, a few weeks later, I was in Sulawesi. Yeah, so again, following my very methodical way of traveling, I started in the south of Sulawesi and I worked on my way up to Manado and then to Bunaken. And honestly, I remember very well the first dive that I had in Bunaken. I remember seeing the wall, I remember seeing the coral, I remember the turtles, the fish everywhere. And that's when I knew, oh, okay, diving is pretty cool. I also saw my first nudibranch and I was like, what even is this? How is it possible? I've been on this planet for 3 decades and I've never seen this creature. How is it possible? Where were they hiding? And of course, they were hiding underwater, but I had never been there. Yeah. So yeah, I think for me, it was more that kind of that sense of discovery that came later on in my diving progression. That's what really hooked me to diving. Yeah, it was not the first one.
Okay, so when you were in Bunaken, did you just still have your open water certification, or so when did you start taking more courses and deciding, okay, I'm gonna continue down this path?
So I was an open water diver in Bunaken for like a day, and then I was like, okay, I want to do my advanced course because I want to go deeper. I want to see more of this. There's so much more down there that I have to see. And to this day, I really love night dives. I think there are different opinions about night diving. I really love it. I really think it's a very different game compared to daytime diving. The kind of creatures that you see, the way that you dive, right? It's very different. And again, I have very vivid memories of that first night dive. And anybody that is listening that has done a night dive in a place with a lot of coral, a lot of colors. My God, that first moment when you shine your light on the coral, it's mind blowing. So yeah, I did it as part of my advanced course. And that was probably the last thing that I needed within the entire Bunaken experience to be completely hooked. I was like, okay, I need to do more of this. This is amazing.
That is awesome. And I am actually a huge fan of night diving. I tell people it's actually some of my favorite type of diving just because, when we go down there during the day and the deeper you go, obviously we learn you lose color and your eyes and your mind adjust so fast that you're still seeing color. It's not as vibrant, but you're like, man, this is amazing. And then when you go night diving, it's like everything's blacked out except for your light, and then you bring all the color back. And I always tell people the coolest stuff comes out at night. Like some of the best night dives I've had were in Bunaken. Like it's just that place is the most magical place in the world. So that is an easy place to fall in love with diving. So that's not very surprising. So that's because it's such a magical place, and it's a place that I always tell people you need to go. So where did your scuba journey take you next?
Okay, so at this point, I've almost run out of the 4 months that I was supposed to be traveling. Then I was going to go back to Switzerland and find a new job. But then I decided, you know what? This traveling thing is really nice. And well, I still have some Swiss money in my bank account, so I'm gonna keep traveling. So then I crossed over to the other side of the world and I went to Latin America. So I started in Bolivia, no diving in Bolivia. I went to Peru, no diving in Peru. But then I went to Ecuador. And, I was an advanced diver. I think by then I had probably 40 dives or so. And of course, I'm in Ecuador, so I have to take a flight to Galapagos. Okay. So I understand now the privilege, because there are many people that spend, I don't know, decades, waiting for that moment to go to Galapagos, saving money and planning trips, planning a liveaboard. So no, I went to Galapagos with my backpack, my 40 dives, my advanced certification. And I did what I like to call poor woman's Galapagos. So I just hopped around a couple of different islands. And then I did a few dives. Of course, I didn't do a liveaboard. I just did some dives from the local islands. And there was this one dive that it was, in a way, the dive that changed everything, perhaps. Maybe life would have changed anyway later on, but it just happened to be this one dive. So we went to Gordon Rock. So maybe some of the listeners know this place. They've been lucky enough to be in this place. It's a very nice dive site where if you're lucky, you can see schools of hammerheads, which I didn't see. But it was still a really, really good dive. I lost count of the mola molas that we saw, really. We might have seen, I don't know, 8, 9, 10. At some point you were looking at one and then you saw the dive master pointing somewhere else. Okay, oh, fine, there's another one. Yeah, it was really fantastic. And then we started doing the safety stop, and a family of sea lions decided to come and join us. So the safety stop became like a mini dive, a 20-minute shallow dive, where we just played with them in the sense that we just we stayed with them and observed them, and it was such a magical moment. And at some point during that very long safety stop, I was thinking, okay, I think I need to write to somebody in Bunaken and see if I can come back. And I think that being a dive master idea, I think it sounds like a really good idea. So yeah, that dive in Galapagos changed a lot of things.
Oh, that is amazing. Because that's actually two bucket list things for me, is the Galapagos and sea lions, and then just to have it all in there. How was the water? Is it pretty cold over there? Are you wearing some pretty thick neoprene? How's that?
So I think I'm not allowed to swear. I'm gonna assume that I'm not allowed to
You're
swear.
all good.
So I'm
All
gonna
good.
say that it was very cold. I think it was 13 degrees. And I had a 7 millimeter wetsuit. And that was it. There was nothing else. Of course, the guide had a dry suit. No, I remember it being very, very cold. I was there with, actually, funny story. I met a fellow diver in Bunaken, Christina. Hello, Christina. And she came and joined me in Galapagos. So a few months later, we met again, and we did the first of those 2 dives that we did that day. We did it together. It was that cold that she didn't come back for the second dive. So, and I'm so sorry, Christina, because that was the dive that changed everything. And I came back and she was probably thinking, what is wrong with you, woman? You know, like, what happened down there? Like, you changed completely. But yeah, it was that cold. She actually didn't make it for the second one. And I don't blame her. It was extremely cold.
Yeah, yeah. No, I am not a big fan of cold water. I've had the privilege of talking to some people that have been diving in some really cold water, and I was just like, I don't know how I would handle that. I do have a dry suit, and I've dove in somewhat cold water, but not even close to some of the water that's out there. But some destinations I do have are definitely cold water destinations. Like the Pacific Northwest is a place that I really want to go. Pacific Northwest of the United States, Galapagos, and then just some other dive destinations that I know it would be cold. So I'll eventually get there, but I definitely like my warm water, warm weather. So.
Yes, no, I'm really a tropical water diver, and as I was saying earlier, I started diving in Indonesia, and I've done most of my diving in that part of the world. So for me, anything below 20 degrees, it has to be very good diving for me to go and to put on anything thicker than 7 millimeters, or to put on a dry suit. Oh my God, it has to be really worth it. Sorry, I'm spoiled.
Nothing wrong with that, and to be honest, I'm the same way, and that's why I end up getting a dry suit because 7 millimeters is just that's a lot of neoprene. It's not comfortable for me, so I was like, I'll buck up and buy a dry suit. But yeah, so after the Galapagos, you went directly to Bunaken to complete your dive master.
Well, not exactly because, I still have some traveling to do. So I sent the email, I arranged everything. I still had to do my rescue course as well. So I arranged everything, and I had, I guess, 3 more months of traveling still. So I left Ecuador, I went to Colombia, and then I was in Mexico and Cuba where I dived. Actually, it was very, very, very nice. And then I went back to Indonesia and back to Bunaken. No, that's not true. I went to Lembongan first, which then played a role in my future development as well, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I went to Lembongan first to do my rescue course. And I have to say, I think this is probably the point. Well, yeah, I think this is probably the point where I started to really feel how much of an impact it can make to have really good instructors. And my instructors in Lembongan were excellent. Then later on, my instructors, when I did my dive master, were excellent. My course director was excellent. And I've had a lot of very positive influences in my professional development in the diving industry. And I've learned to understand the importance of that because I've seen so much of the opposites. I've seen so many bad examples. So I feel very, very lucky in a way, but at the same time, I don't think it was just luck. I think I was serious about what I was doing, so I made sure that I was making the right choices. I was sure, of course, that I was paying for my courses, that I was not expecting to get teaching in return for slavery or anything like that, So I've always been very much willing to pay whatever needs to be paid in order to get the kind of education in diving that I had to get. So yeah, in line with that thought, when I went to Lembongan, I had a really good rescue course. And I think, for a lot of divers, and I think this is quite true, that's kind of like a turning point Now, for me, fine, I already knew that I wanted to do my dive master, but still, I think it makes a difference to be taught by the right people and to start to get that kind of, wider overview of what is going on around you, what are people doing, how can I help, how can I prepare myself better to help others, to support others. So it was such a nice way to start easing into what was about to become a professional career for me.
Okay, no, that's awesome, and I absolutely agree. I felt like I've had pretty good instruction, and I can't really look back and say that I've had bad instruction, but in the beginning you don't really know what you don't know. And then I'll like some certain things will kind of come to light and I'm like, should that have been done in that class, And but I definitely it took me a while before I kind of figured out that yeah, the instruction really makes a huge difference in your progression, in your learning. So that is absolutely great advice, especially pay for it. I don't.
Please. It's like we have to fix a lot of things in the diving industry and in the world,
Yeah.
in general. But anyway, one thing at a time. And I think, yeah, diving is great. People love diving, and sometimes, often even, they're willing to get courses, to work in return for a course, to work for free essentially. And this works out really nicely for the dive center owners, for the instructors. Okay, you don't have to pay for somebody to fill tanks and to carry equipment. In return, you just spend a few hours with them. You teach them a course that is probably not being taught the way that it should be taught, and everybody wins something. But if this keeps happening, we're destroying the working conditions for people that actually want to work in the diving industry. They want to have a fair salary, fair working conditions. If this keeps happening, we're just getting further and further away from that goal. No, that's how I feel.
I agree, and I feel it's kind of a bummer sometimes because I feel, or from things that I've seen, that first professional level of scuba is the dive master, and I've just seen dive masters being treated so horribly, and it's like, oh, you're at the lower. You're at the lowest part of the totem pole. You got to earn your right, and I do get that to a sense where it's like, okay, you have to earn your place, but not be treated like shit. And it
Yeah.
sucks because I feel a lot of people, that's why I've seen a lot of people, then they'll fast track to instructor because they're like, oh, that's where I'm making the big bucks, and they don't spend time, even though we're not making the big bucks.
No, we're not. Where is the money?
Yeah. But the that time as a dive master is just so important, and you can learn so much that you'll become such a better instructor. And I mean, I know people. I don't know the correct length of time. I know I told myself I'll give it a year of working as a dive master, try to pick up some stuff, and some people might say that that's not enough. So I don't really know the correct amount of time, but I definitely feel I see why people want to move on very quickly because they're like, man, I'm making pennies on the dollar and I'm doing a lot of work, and that's kind of a bummer thing to see just because this is such a great sport, and yeah, if we could treat people better, I mean, yeah, like you said, we have world problems, scuba problems, there's all types of problems. So, but enough about me ranting. So tell me more. So we're at your rescue course.
Yes. So then I went back to Bunaken, the place of dreams. Guys, if you haven't been to Bunaken yet, book your flights, go to Bunaken. So I went back to Bunaken, and I forgot exactly how long I was supposed to spend there doing my dive master course, but it was something like 4 or 5 weeks. Well, in the end, it kind of became a year or so, 9 months, something like that. Well, the course itself took, I think, 6 weeks. And then, okay, going back to what you were saying about how dive masters are treated, no? Well, I have to say that I had a really great experience again. I had amazing instructors, Sam and Ilse. Hello, I hope you're doing well. And you know them, actually.
Yeah.
And so I had great role models. They taught me really everything that they had to teach me. They didn't skip absolutely anything. And if anything, they always expected from me more than what I think other instructors would have expected from their dive master trainees. No, so in a sense, they were treating me as an equal. And I had the opportunity to be with them in the pool when they were teaching open water courses, advanced every course basically. This is when I was already certified, of course, and I got to see really everything. I was part of the team. I was again treated as an equal, as a person that okay, she wants to learn, she wants to make a career out of this, and we need to expect a lot from her, and they did, but that was the right thing. So it was beautiful. It was, I didn't want to leave Bunaken. But actually, there was a small problem, no? First, the visa situation. I think a lot of us in this industry are also very familiar with issues with visas and work permits and so on. But also the sad realization that I had at this point is that, I wasn't making any money, really. And my Swiss money was running out. So I couldn't really extend my stay anymore. So I had to go back to the silly corporate world and make some money, because after that experience, again, with the role models that I had around me, the amazing diving that I had around me, the amazing local people of Bunaken, you know them, I just wanted more. I just wanted to make a career in the diving industry. So I knew that I wanted to be an instructor. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll have to go back, make some money, and go and do my IDC.
So quick question. I know that when I went and did my Divemaster, and I'm not sure if they still do this. I'm pretty sure that they still do, but the facility Two Fish Divers, they would offer people to do their Divemaster. You could do it in different locations. I knew me as soon as I landed on Bunaken, I'm like, I'm not leaving. I'm staying here the whole time. Were you feeling the same way? Was there a reason like you didn't want to go check out the other places? Because I know some people were like, oh, I'm going to spend a few weeks here and then go over here and spend a few weeks. So was it just like, I'm not leaving, this is a magical place? So...
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Actually, my rescue course was part of that package, right? Oh. So I chose two locations. Okay. Right? So I chose Lemongan for the rescue and then Bunaken for the whole of my dive master, because they have locations also in Lombok. Yeah, at the moment they have, I think, Ahmed, Lemongan, Bunaken, Gili, yeah. And maybe I'm missing one, but anyway, I think other people already chose, okay, I'll do 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. For me, I knew Bunaken already, and I knew the other locations. Like, I had been traveling in the other locations, so I was like, no, I mean, don't take the girl out of Bunaken. She's gonna stay here. So I really had no doubts that I wanted to stay as long as possible in Bunaken. But I think it's also a bit of, the place has to match with your personality. And there were other dive master trainees that I met during my time in, within Two Fish and during my time in Bunaken, that they actually loved Lemongan or they loved the Gillies, no? Because maybe the age range was a bit different, the kind of lifestyle that they wanted to have was different. I mean, in Bunaken, we have one bar. So that's where we go. That's where we go to play music, to drink, to chat to other divers about diving. So we don't have the options that you can have in Lembongan, and definitely the options that you can have in Gili T has nothing to do. So for me, it was just a personality kind of match, let's say. So yeah, no doubt I wanted to stay there, yeah.
So back to the corporate world, how long were you there before you were able to break out again?
So my plan was a year. And so the other part of me, so basically I'm a mermaid and I'm also a translator. That's the two things that I do in life. So I went back to a translation agency to do account management. I knew people in the industry, so it was quite easy to get a job. And yeah, I planned for 1 year. But then, because, my relationship with Indonesia is it's not even love-hate, it's love-love, it's always love. So at some point during that year, I was like, I I think I deserve a holiday, and well, I'll go back to Indonesia. I need to go diving anyway. So I went to Indonesia, and I met the person that, well, also contributed to changing my life. And this person was the one that would become my course director, and that was Uning, who, as of today, she is still the one and only female Indonesian course director, which I think is very cool, by the way. So we both love coffee, and we were having a coffee in Lembongan. I was there visiting, a few people, and among them Tom and Helen, and you know them too. And Uning was there, and we had a chat, and that chat basically changed all of my plans for the rest of the year. I was like, oh God, okay, well, fine. I'll go back because I had to take my return flight. I had to go back and quit my job, basically, again. So I went back to Madrid. I quit my job. I packed up and I went back to Indonesia and I did my IDC with Uning.
Just life-changing events unfolding. That's absolutely amazing. I love that.
What a coffee can change, what a difference a good coffee can make. A big difference, let me tell you.
So tell me about your whole IDC experience.
Well, it was really great. One of the reasons is that Uning is really an excellent mentor, instructor, an excellent person as well. So in that sense, in terms of what I was learning and the way that I was learning, what was being asked of me, it was just so smooth and it was challenging, but not too difficult. And I mean, you've done your IDC, right? It's long days. Whoever says that doing an IDC is easy, well, I don't know what kind of IDC they've had, because it should be challenging, right? But it shouldn't be impossible. It should be something that, okay, the day ends and you're like, okay, I feel like I learned something today, but I'm not scared about tomorrow, right? And I think going back to my dive master, I think because of the way my dive master was taught to me, and because of everything that I was able to do as a dive master, all the courses that I was able to assist in, and the way that I was treated, I was really prepared for my IDC. So I remember getting in the pool the second day, we were gonna do a skill circuit, and I was like, okay, this is good. I wasn't surprised, I was not like, oh, I've never seen that before, or we will get to that point also in a minute. I'm recently, since last month, I'm a staff instructor now with Paddy.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting position to be in, because then you see, oh my God, the different levels that people are at when they start their IDC. No, and some of them, few of them are pretty well prepared. And then a lot of them, you just look at them and you're like, how did this happen? How are you here today, And I think this is a big, big problem in this industry. And it's a problem that I hope I can contribute to fixing in the next few years. Because I really don't know how these people are being taught in their dive master courses and how they're working, if they have worked then as a dive master. What are they doing, And how is it that there are no more diving accidents? You know what I mean? It's pretty mind-blowing. So going back to my own experience, I am very grateful that by the time I started my IDC, I was actually ready. And I learned a lot during that course, but I already brought with me the knowledge that one, I believe, should have by the time they start an IDC course.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, just because it is pretty wild, some of the stuff that you see, it is a big unfortunate thing that you see a lot of people kind of just getting walked through, they're essentially paying for certs, and it's crazy because it could be extremely dangerous in just certain situations. And like you said, you're surprised that we don't see a lot of accidents, and I'm sure that there are a lot of accidents, but I know I want to say I don't know if there's been studies or anything, but imagine how many accidents don't get reported, and that's why there's I'm feeling a little weird, I'll just go and sleep it off, or this is a little, that wasn't such a good dive, and it's crazy the stuff that you see, especially yeah, like I'm not, obviously I'm not a staff instructor, but just even being a diver going on a dive boat, sometimes you're just like, what am I looking at right now? Like, what's going on?
Oh my God. And another problem, there's this attitude of I am a superman or a superwoman and I know everything, I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me that I have to do this differently. I think there's a lot of this. Fortunately, there are different types of divers, okay? And it's bad to generalize in any direction. But that we come across this kind of attitude often enough, right? People that, well, no, I've seen this is a real story. I'm just gonna wear my 8 kilo weight belt from the moment we leave the harbor until the moment we need to start getting ready for this dive. And don't you dare telling this person that it's not a very good idea to carry 8 kilos of lead around your waist while you're on a boat and you have no other floating device anywhere near you. But they take it very personally if you tell them, excuse me, sir, would you please remove your weight belt?
And that's kind of a bummer sometimes too, because you do hear a lot that's like, oh, this is a rich man's sport, rich person's sport, I should say. So I feel like unfortunately with that comes with those attitudes, which is just sucks. It sucks a lot of the times, and but that's what's amazing also about this industry is you do meet a lot of like-minded people that are out there just doing it because they love it. They're not making any money. They just want to get that breath underwater, go see the fish, the coral, whatever's under there, So, but yeah, it's amazing we don't hear about more accidents because unfortunately there is a lot of bad instruction out there. So moving forward, now you are a instructor. Talk about like that path. Where has it led you? Has it brought you to some beautiful places that you've taught, places that you want to go back, places that you never want to go back? All the experiences.
So I finished my IDC, I passed my IE, and I started working in Lemongan. I spent only a few weeks teaching there, which it is quite rock and roll, I have to say. It's a pretty cool place to start teaching open water courses, doing CISA while drifting. That's something that I was not exactly prepared to do, but well, you have to do what you have to do. So that was quite fun. So I taught in Lembongan, then I taught also in Amed. So that's what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast. That's when I had a chance to go back to that part of Bali and do some more diving. And small disclaimer, I like pelagic fish, but I also love macro. So I like everything really. As long as my head is underwater, it's fine. So Ahmed was really cool for macro. I had no idea that you can find so much good macro in Ahmed, and yeah, I love my time there, and it was super comfortable. The dive center was right on the beach. We had a pool, so you could go straight from the pool to the sea in like 1 minute. It was really an amazing place for teaching, great conditions as well. So the complete opposite to Lemongan, really. I went from rock and rolling to like, oh, okay, wow, this is nice. And then, of course, I went back to Bunaken. I got a job managing a dive resort in Bunaken. But that was unfortunately shortly before COVID. I think everybody here has heard of COVID. So yeah, that job only lasted a few months, and then we had to close the resort, and I had to think deep and long about what to do with my life, because I mean nobody knew anything, no, but I think it was pretty clear as the months went by that traveling and tourism and diving were off for some time. So that's actually how I ended up here in Lanzarote, in the Canary Islands, which is where I currently more or less live most of the time. But yeah, I'll tell you guys a bit more about that too. So yeah, I came back here, and since I'm also a translator, I was able to just work online, and there was not so much going on here in terms of diving, especially in 2020. 2021, more dive centers started to get more customers, and there was a bit of a need for dive instructors. But of course, they were giving priority to the ones that had been working here before, the local people, which I completely agree with. So I wasn't really teaching much, just freelancing every now and again. Now, let's go to 2022. I decided to gift myself a liveaboard experience, the first one, by the way, in the Maldives. So I went to the Maldives with my laptop because, well, when you work online, you work always. and, and then I had, obviously, all my diving gear. So I did the central route in the Maldives, which was absolutely mind-blowing. I can recommend it 100%. So after a couple of dives, I was like, oh, wow. And I have to say, this was my first time diving in tropical waters since COVID. No? So it was like, that couple of years diving here in the Atlantic, which it is amazing. Like we have really great diving here in the Canary Islands, and particularly here in Lanzarote. But it's not the same, right? It's not like, okay, now I can go with a rash guard and shorties. That's, I was missing that feeling. So yeah, like after a few dives in the Maldives, I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do now? Because, well, my life, I can take it with me wherever I want, really. My work comes with me in my backpack. So even though I was really happy to be here in Lanzarote, I would never say no to a new adventure. So after a few days, I think halfway through that liveaboard, everybody on the boat was saying, well, Rosa, so are you staying then? Are you going to cancel your flight? And they could see it, really. They could see, oh, something is changing in her. So yes, I was already kind of, making some plans in my mind about how I could just stay in the Maldives and find work in the Maldives, which I did. In the end, I did come back to Lanzarote because, well, I had left my car parked, in a random place, and I couldn't just not come back. But I basically came back and sorted everything out, put my car away in a safe location, and I went back to the Maldives. So I started hopping around a little bit. So it was a bit of, okay, let's hop around, let's do more diving, of course. And in the meantime, I'll see what opportunities I could have here. So for me, it was very clear that I didn't want to work in a resort. I didn't want that kind of lifestyle. First, because I've heard so many stories about working in resorts in the Maldives. And also because for me personally, I was quite interested in, how life is in the local islands in the Maldives. And then also having that kind of freedom, that mobility, to, if you have a day off, maybe you can go to Male, spend some time in Male. I mean, Male, I don't know why you would want to go to Male, but having that possibility anyway is good. I think freedom is good. And eventually, I decided to stay in Razdu, which is a little island about 1.5 hours from Male, with really, really good diving. I mean, most places in the Maldives have great diving. But this place, I liked it quite a lot. I liked the people. The diving, again, was spectacular. And there was a dive center that was looking for an instructor, and they actually have a lot of Spanish customers. So it was like a match made in heaven. So I stayed.
So you stuck around in the Maldives. What was the whole total time in the Maldives?
Well, let's say 1 year. I did take some time to go to Indonesia because, well, I was so close. I had to go. I do have an obsession with Indonesia, guys. This is it. I cannot help it. This is this love relationship that I have. So yeah, I went to Indonesia for a bit and also to Sri Lanka. Because again, it's like an hour flight, and I wanted to learn how to surf. So I spent a bit of time there, but it was it was about 1 year in the Maldives. Yeah.
You're obviously back in the Canary Islands.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're working there as as a staff instructor now. So how were you? Is it like a shop that you knew before you left that you were working at and just came back to, or tell me a little bit more about that?
That's actually pretty funny because the course director with whom I did my staff instructor, we met in Razdu. And this is hilarious because we both lived on this island in Lanzarote, and we had never met each other. We had never crossed paths. And then we crossed paths over there in Razdu, and his dive shop is about 5 minutes from my house here. So when I came back, I was like, well, Kev, it's time for me to do my staff instructor now. We were kind of joking about it in Maldives. And so I came back and I was like, yeah, okay, no, let's do it. So I did it with him, with Kev. And now I'm working with him. But I'm also keeping my translation work on the side. So I do a little bit of both at the moment.
I'm not sure if I saw this correctly, but did you ended up doing a crossover to another agency?
I did, yes. So that was actually one of the prerequisites for the job in Rasdu,
Oh,
because
okay.
the dive center was SSI, so I had to do my crossover. And once again, and this is just how the universe works, the instructor trainer with whom I did my crossover, Danny, he was yet another excellent influence in my professional development, really. He's somebody that doesn't cut any corners. I think I had a crossover that most people don't get to have. It was actually done the way that I believe it should be done. So it took us a few days. It was not like, I think people say, oh, you do a crossover, you just have to learn a couple of skills and it takes like a day. Well, we took a week, and we ticked all the boxes, but we ticked them properly. And yeah, so currently I am both a PADI staff instructor and I'm an SSI open water instructor.
So this journey has been an absolutely wonderful experience from the first breath underwater to not like, yeah, this is cool, to now it's completely just brought you down this path. Would you have thought that when you did that first open water course that you would be sitting here speaking on a scuba podcast today?
Absolutely not, really. No. Like I said, it was like, oh, this is cool. But if I had known that a year later I would be becoming a dive master, basically, I would have been very surprised. And now, well, if I look towards the future and my future goals, for sure I want to become a course director or an instructor trainer. Okay, I'll have to decide at some point which agency I want to go with. For now, I'm stuck with PADI, for better or worse. I mean, to me, this whole agency game is like, oh, look, as long as you do what you should be doing, as long as you're doing things right, and like so much of who you are as a dive professional is down to you as a person and down to you and your work ethics. So like whether you have an SSI logo next to your name or a PADI logo or whatever other agency, to me it's not really that relevant, I just want to be the best that I can be with whichever agency I'm with. So anyway, I will become a course director or instructor trainer, and I hope to be the same positive role model to other future instructors and future divers that I've been lucky to have with so many of my instructors in my career. And to also bring on more female pros, because I think for whatever reason, and I don't know, I don't know what it is, but it seems like we lose them along the way. No, you get to these higher levels and most of the dive pros are men, and it's fair enough. Okay, a lot of the pros that I've met are really great professionals, but I want to see more females among them, So that's one of my little battles that I want to fight.
That's great. That's absolutely great. And to be honest, I actually I'm trying to keep it on the podcast like I want it to be an even playing field. Like I've gotten some really good interviews with some really good women out there, so I'm really hoping to bring more. I mean, like I said, I want everybody to be involved in this podcast, so that's why I really appreciate you coming on here. So last couple of quick questions, and these ones might be hard, so don't feel obligated to answer in, I was gonna say one word answer, but if you had to sum up your overall experience in the South America part of the world, how would you rate that? Or if just like a quick summary, like one, if you could say it in one word, that would be amazing. But I mean that would be a hard one to sum up in one word.
Magical. We're talking particularly about South America, right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna go different regions and then end up with one last question, but just because I have not been to South America, so and it's a destination that I've wanted to go to. So I was just gonna, what was the overall experience there?
Magical, because there's just this, I don't know, there's something about that land that just evokes all these magical feelings, and to me personally was a very magical journey. And I've been very lucky to travel quite a bit in my life, but that trip in South America, it has a special aura around it, and I think it's an aura of magic.
Obviously, you don't need to try to convince me or even tell me because I know, but Indonesia, summarize it in just a few quick. Because I know it's been ever since I first stepped foot in that country, I fell in love. I was like, this is the best place in the world. So yeah, what would you say overall summary?
Okay, I cannot use only one word for this one. It's impossible. But I would say, it's a land that is full of surprises, is full of colors, is full of smells, is full of sounds. Like every day is an adventure. And one thing that is incredible about Indonesia is that it doesn't matter where you need to go, what you need to do, who you need to meet, like whatever you need to do, somehow it will happen. Somehow everything always has its way of working, even though when you look at things, it seems like nothing is really working. But actually, it's a really perfect system where at the end of the day, everything works. And you don't know how. Maybe it's also magical. I don't know. But yeah, it's just, look, I think we can continue going back to Indonesia every year of our lives forever. We will never get to discover all the different layers, all the different things that Indonesia has to offer. And I think that's one thing that keeps us going back and keeps us captivated.
Oh, I absolutely love it. That's why I'm so excited for where I am now because it just brought me. I mean, before in Texas, it would be 30 plus hours of travel just to get to Indonesia between all the layovers and stuff. And now, I mean, we can be there if we. They used to have direct flights, I believe, from Penang. They don't, I think, since after COVID. But yeah, quick flight to KL from KL to right into Bali is super quick, and actually it's right across the strait too, so depending on where I want to go in Indonesia, I could pretty much get there in an hour. So it's like it's pretty awesome. And then my final question before I let you go, what advice would you have to new divers right out of open water? Maybe they're looking into continuing their education, maybe they're not, but they just took this open water class and they don't really know what to think, or even advice to people that want to become instructors, but just people, I guess I should say, what advice would you have for people continuing their education? What could they work on? What mindset? I mean, whatever advice, wherever direction you want to go in.
I mean, I think I would have to sit them down and put a glass of wine in front of them and talk to them for 7 hours. But since I don't think I would have the privilege of that time, I would tell them to take their time, really. Like, this is not a race to get anywhere. Whether you want to be a pro or whether you just want to become a better diver, take your time. Nobody gets good at surfing from one day to the next. Nobody gets good at running from one day to the next. You have to continue training. So take your time to train. Unfortunately, it's a bit of an expensive sport, so fine, it might take a bit of a financial effort, but okay, don't rush it. Just save your money, go on diving trips, get experience. Another thing, be humble, open your ears, listen to people that have more experience than you, listen to people that even started diving like last year, because maybe they've done something, they've seen something that can be valuable to you. So be always open-minded to learning from anybody on the diving boat that you are at. And then please don't destroy this industry, don't take free work. Don't volunteer unless it's a really good cause and you want to save, I don't know, the angel shark, and there's a really nice opportunity to help an organization to do so. But if it's work that should be paid, don't do it for free, because you're actually being part of the problem for everybody else that wants better conditions. Because it's, everything is connected. So if people are working for free, people don't want to pay good salaries, then certain people don't want to work in the industry. We could be losing good people that could be amazing instructors, divers, and they're not doing it because, we are destroying our own industry. So yeah, I think I would tell them many more things, but I would probably name a few of those, yeah.
I absolutely love that advice. That is great. And I want to thank you again. Thank you very much for coming on to the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Nick. This was really a pleasure, and I'm happy to hear from you again. It's been a few years, huh?
Offgassing, a scuba podcast.